Hey everybody, and welcome back to DejaVue,
your favorite Vue podcast. You maybe just don't know it yet, although this is now the second year that we've been recording this podcast. Well, I guess we started in 2024.
Correct.
And now it's 2025. So we've got a few episodes going. So today we're going to be sharing some of our predictions for 2025. What are we going to see in Vue? What's going to happen in the whole ecosystem? Things like that. So you might hear some spicy takes, maybe some boring ones, but we think it'll be pretty interesting.
Absolutely. But who is we? I mean, you might have heard two familiar voices already. First of all, there's Michael Thiessen, the lovely co-host of this podcast. How are you doing, Michael?
I'm doing pretty good. And with me, my co-host, Alex. How are you doing?
Also pretty great. Can't complain. The weather could be worse. That's always a good indicator, but no, actually good. Lots of New Year's resolutions to keep up with. For example, of course, going to the gym, maybe some more bouldering. But talking about bouldering, we have a lovely guest here, the same guest as we had before in our lovely 2024 recap edition, the wonderful lead of the Nuxt team and open source maintainer and avid boulderer, Daniel Roe. Daniel, how are you doing?
I am well, thank you. Well, I mean, I'm slightly well. I actually got a bit injured. About an hour ago. I popped to the gym.
No.
And managed to cut my hand up a bit. So it'll heal probably quite quickly. It's not going to hold me back too much, but there's a small amount of pain.
Get well soon. I hope this doesn't impact your coding abilities at all. Of course.
Well, hands. I don't know I mean, one of the things about accessibility, people quite helpfully say, we are like accessibility is about making provision for making the web, making our apps accessible for people who are who might, for example, be temporarily needing that help. If you suddenly lose the ability to type because you have a hand injury, then suddenly you'll start to be very, very grateful that people made something accessible that you might not have cared about before. So it's anyway. I think, still type. And I can definitely prognosticate. I can wisely stroke my chin. It might not be wise when I come up with any predictions, but yeah, I should be good.
And I mean,
I hope you get better soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Actually, I got more injured last night. I was in a bike accident. So basically, I like at the moment, I feel like just bits of me are sort of in shambles. I'll be fine. I'll be totally fine. I feel
as a side note,
I clonked my head, like I slid on the asphalt. So I've got sort of like cuts on my face, and my other hand has got lots of stuff. Anyway, this is probably not why you invited me on the podcast to talk.
Do you have all your teeth though, right? That's a good one.
I mean, I wear false teeth, of course. That's I always have. It saves on this kind of thing.
Just for the podcast. Just for the audio podcast. Very important.
This is not the case. But I do like, do you always need to tell people when you're joking? Like there was that time, the April Fool's joke that I made about something like, I'm taking a break from leading the Nuxt team, something like that. And then once I have a cup of tea, I'll be sort of resuming again. But loads of people never read that sort of second tweet, and I felt very guilty. I felt like people have had a bit of a worry that they might have built their website on the wrong framework. Like there was a sort of real implications of that. So I always feel really bad. So I'm not sure there's any real implication of me saying I have false teeth. There's no problem with that. Although I could tell you, actually, I know people who have taken out their healthy teeth and replaced them with new teeth.
Why?
That are artificial and therefore will never wear out. And the idea is that it's like an upgrade. It's like a body mod upgrade that will just
bionic man
set you for life. So like now you don't need to worry about your teeth ever again. They're just permanently perfect.
Interesting.
That is not something
weird,
I have
but
ever considered.
I understand the.
That must have been expensive as well. Like,
I'm sure it must have been expensive. And also, by the way, do you know how it works? Really, I guess this is probably all going to get cut from the podcast, but
It's voting no. We have it all in. And there's a trigger warning just in case people will not want to hear how you implement
you probably
teeth.
don't want to hear this. The way that it works is they file your teeth. They don't take them out. They file them down to like little nubs, and then they attach the new teeth that they have created in some lab to these like little nubs of teeth that you have remaining. Doesn't that just... I don't know. Doesn't that just sends like a weird feeling up your spine? I don't know. It creeped me out.
It does.
Totally.
It does. Fully. But I think
fully, absolutely. Like, you don't feel normally I'm very much, hey, body mod. I upgrade myself. Yes, I'm going to stick a chip in my brain the first chance I get. But for some reason, filing down your teeth
different
to attach, fake teeth, like it doesn't do it for me.
It's like one of the decisions you can't go back on either. Like, like if you decide, actually, this was a bad choice. I wish I could go back. Well,
too bad.
You can't.
But I mean, chip in the brain is also something that doesn't sound too reversible necessarily. So that's still a higher tier for me. But nevertheless, all the feelings that people might have now, I hope you won't have them for the hot takes and the predictions that are coming up right now, which is where we slowly should move to as we are here in the Vue podcast.
Yeah.
That I always love the little sidetracks. Yeah, so in 2025, a lot of things will happen. I'm more than sure about that. In the 2024 edition, Daniel already told us more or less that there will be at least one thing happen. So a very boring prediction. I just want to start straight away and say 2025 is the year Nuxt 4 will be released.
Yes.
Bold.
Alex, I think that prediction is basically... That's like 100% chance of happening.
100%.
Yeah, 100% chance. But, well, basically, as long as I remain alive, which might, given my bouldering and cycling accidents, there's not 100% guaranteed. But I think as long as someone from the core team remains alive, I feel like we're jolly well going to release it. Like I say, I'll tell you this: even if Nitro doesn't release in 2024, 25. We are still going to have Nuxt 4 because there is no way.
Yeah, so, I mean, we covered it luckily in a recap episode abroad. So if somebody missed it out, definitely check it out. There are chapter marks for everything. So just jump there or listen to the whole episode, of course. So yeah, a very, very simple, but of course, a thing to bring up 2025 as the year of Nuxt 4. So yeah, then
I've got a related and also like another boring prediction, which is that 2025 will be the year of the new Mastering Nuxt update for Nuxt 4. And so we've got some other things in the works. You might see a few more other things related to Mastering Nuxt, but I can't say much more than that. So I'll leave that there. I'll dangle that there for you.
Interesting.
Can I just say, like, what's the significance of having Nuxt 4? So what does it mean that it's the year of Nuxt 4? Because in a way, we're saying that the features, it's not about features. So to say that it's the year of Nuxt 4 means that it will be the first chance people will have to see what a major version upgrade looks like for Nuxt, which means that 2025 will be a year of evaluating the strategy and vision of Nuxt. So people will be able to make up their minds. So enterprises will be able to say, are we happy to build future stuff on this? Are we happy to commit to it if this is what it's like? So it's a very pivotal one for Nuxt, I think. Maybe less pivotal for people using it, I hope. So the idea that it's the year of Nuxt 4, probably it's going to be significant, I think, for the future of Nuxt. Maybe significant for enterprises. Mm-hmm. I think that, and a lot of the stuff on our roadmap is stuff like multi-app, module federation, stuff that's enterprise level. Yeah, maybe you could revise to say, rather than just being the year of Nuxt 4, it's the year of evaluating the future of Nuxt. It's a year of enterprise adoption of Nuxt, I hope. So those might be some tweaks to that prediction.
Do you think that Nuxt 4 will drive the adoption of Nuxt.js, especially like in the enterprise sector? If like people see, hey, stable version, don't have to migrate for half a year or longer, don't need any help, just can push a button. That's it.
I think that there's a lot of uncertainty from the 2 to 3 upgrade. And a lot of the reason people are asking so much, when will Nuxt 4 come out, is that they want to start the migration or plan migration in their company's budget. So of time budget, like they'll have sprints, new features are being released, stuff's happening. When do we need to allocate some time to upgrade? We don't want it to be 6 months. So people want to know that. Now, once it's clear that it's a matter of like a day or a week at most, like that's going to be hopefully mean that people are going to feel a lot happier about their decision to be on Nuxt. That's what I hope. Hopefully that will mean people be more eager to build new stuff on it. And when I say, people will be built, it's not raw numbers. It's because the people who use Nuxt are the people who contribute and build Nuxt. So the best thing for the future of Nuxt and seeing, great features and good bug fixes is to have an active group of people who use it. And that's true also from enterprises as well, who will be hitting like edge cases that nobody else hits and adding features that maybe nobody else needs. But, it's a significant and important piece of the puzzle.
I think there's also a bit of like a psychological thing with like a new major version, even if, you can't do anything new necessarily with Nuxt 4 versus, what we have now. There's like this, okay, it's like the new year where like you can make your New Year's resolutions at the beginning of December. You could decide to start going to the gym or start bouldering or whatever. But like, it's this whole like fresh start kind of thing. And I think it's easier to talk about and like, I don't know, it's just like more exciting in a way I don't know. I think there's maybe some sort of psychological thing there too.
Good points there.
At least for me.
Should we go on with another hot take? Daniel, Michael, anyone who wants to go first, or another prediction? Doesn't have to be a hot take, it can be a prediction too.
I think it's going to be a year of reaping. And I think that there's a lot of discontent. I'm going in spicy. So looking at the state of JS, well, any of the survey results for the last year, there's a lot of negativity about the current React experience with frameworks. And so I think this is going to be a year where we see explosive growth in stuff like TanStack Start, which I think we'll see huge. I think people are really excited about it. Remix also might. I think it will basically be a React framework challenger year. Might not be the case, but I think we'll start to see it. Basically, the sentiment, people's sentiment, developer sentiment, I think lags the actual change in behavior by some considerable amount of time, like a matter of a year or two. And I think that we might start seeing it from this past year. People unhappy with, they don't like the app router, or they find that the deployment story is limited. So I think I'm right in saying that we'll see stuff like Remix and TanStack Start. And I hope that means that it's going to be the year of Nitro, because obviously TanStack Start built on Nitro, as is Solid Start and other frameworks too, like Analog. Angular is considering adopting it, which is pretty exciting. So I think that, that is maybe a side effect. So it's not like individuals are saying, hey, I want to adopt Nitro for my React app. But I think people who are looking to use a different framework for their React app might find that they're using Nitro under the hood, even if it's not something they're explicitly aware of. And I hope that means there's going to be a lot of, forward movement, momentum, development, excitement around Nitro, and people discovering it and being pretty excited about it. So that was 2 hot takes in one. But indeed. I think so. I think what you'll see is the beginnings of growth. But I don't think you're going to start seeing a reduction in people using Next.js, because that takes a long time for that to happen. People who've already built sites, you don't migrate stuff across, because you build new stuff in a different thing. So that might be something we start to see.
I think a lot of good points there. I remember when I checked the State of JS survey, I also, of course, everybody saw the downwards trend with positivity in React, same with Next.js. There was a small number of people, I think like 1 or maximum 2%, that like the Next.js usage got reduced. So not significant, but at least before it was always trending upwards, like more people used it. So in a way, I think we see some changes there already. And I agree, like everything that has TanStack in front of it, no matter if it's TanStack Start or handstack query, forms, table, whatsoever, is super popular, not only in the React universe, right? That's the best part, but especially handstack Start as a React-based framework with the router and everything. I think that will go quite well. And I would wish like Tanner and the whole team all the best. I think it's a great thing that happens in React universe, where it was always very, let's say, Next.js and Vercel dominated, especially last years. So having a bit more choice and also push towards framework agnostic libraries is pretty nice.
Yeah. And obviously a lot of the stuff that people are going to be interested in handstack Start will be usable in Vue as well, because the query will definitely be usable. And it might be interesting to see a router also. There could be some kind of Nuxt router integration. So
that would be neat, interesting. And yeah, all the things they do with like, I don't know, hydrating specific parts of their application, like, or scroll restoration for different parts. It's all super interesting what's happening there. And yeah, I hope that we as the Vue and Nuxt ecosystem can also benefit from these, let's say, results out there. That would be great.
Yeah, it feels interesting. It feels fun.
One word there in terms of Nitro is I really hope that prediction comes true and this will be the year of Nitro. I mean, we've seen it also in certain posts. For example, Natalie did a little post of a year in review where it was mentioned that like, okay, Nitro is not only used in Nuxt, which is true by a while now, but now more and more people see that. So I think that's great. Though on the other hand, I think it will only be really the year of Nitro if there are a few things done, let's say, differently, or the focus has to shift a little bit in terms of like more content around what Nitro's capabilities are. People could say this is like marketing, quote unquote. I would just say extensive docs, examples, cookbooks, and so on. Just say like, hey, okay, you can do all these cool things on all different like deployment providers, no matter if it's on Cloudflare or if you use, I don't know, your VPS or Vercel Netlify. You can do all these amazing things. And this is how the framework works here. The 100 most common cases, what you can do, and have like people pick it up, not only being seen as someone that's like, okay, this is used to build your own meta framework, but also this is used to replace current server frameworks to make things more modern. And I really hope this will come true. Plus the whole part of, well, I think that even applies for NJS in general, that more people can devote time to like contribute to NJS and to Nitro that can be issue triaging, as you just mentioned, documentation examples. So I really hope that will happen as well, because then I really think that the year of Nitro is 2025 indeed.
Yeah. So someone needs to create a course, don't they?
Oh, that's true. Someone, that's right. That might be when Nitro V3 is out. There could be someone on this podcast, maybe even, who created a course. But I heard there's also someone else who wanted to create a course moving from a framework that has reduced positivity over to Nuxt as well.
Oh, I feel so guilty about that. So you're talking about React to Nuxt. I got an Ask Me Anything question the other day about it. The problem, of course.
Do you have a prediction for this?
Well, I predict it will be launched this year. Because my plan is to build it, like to record the sessions, the lectures, videos, like with an initial cohort of people who are going to give feedback and direction. So basically say, hey, I need some React devs. I'm going to teach you like Nuxt. So here we go. I'll give you a video every week, guaranteed. Tell me how it goes. What are the topics you want to know more about? And I'll keep them coming. That will be the sort of the promise. And so once that starts, I'm in. I've got no choice. I've got to build it. So the main thing for me is just to get the infrastructure ready. So I've got like a way of being paid and hosting the videos, which I'll probably do on Cloudflare Video. Yeah. And that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think, Michael, you also can sing a song about that, like building your own course platform to launch your courses.
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? Like, it's impossible to use an existing SaaS. Like, I'm guessing there probably is some kind of SaaS that already exists, but it probably takes a percentage. Probably, I would guess.
Yeah, there's some, and then they're
also
you can
not
put videos or whatever. Yeah,
they're probably not exactly what you want.
They won't be exactly what you want.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the problem.
Like,
and then you think, oh, I want to add this little thing in there, and you're like, what? You can't. So
yeah.
But then you have to deal with all of like the the authentication and payments and, all that kind of stuff. And that's the part that takes the longest as with anything. Because the actual like amount of features you need for a course platform is fairly minimal. It's just like all of the boilerplate is actually pretty substantial, because you do need like authentication and payments, and you have to manage, like, maybe you want to have multiple courses in the future, and so you have to maybe do that, and then are you gonna there's lots of stuff.
There definitely is. There definitely is. I think as a lovely reference, there is a library. There's a repository out there, even better. It's open source. It's called Course-Builder by Badass Courses. And whoever probably a lot of listeners out there know Matt Pocock, for example, who is also on the podcast already. His total TypeScript course is also based on the course platform he's using on the repository. Sadly, of course, it's React based, but that's still, I think, kind of a good starting point to see what is all like possible, maybe needed, maybe nice extra, and also worth taking a look there, especially because it's open source, all made by, I think, like Joel and the team there to bring an amazing course platform builder, so to say, to the people. So also worth looking in there. It's also like they say it's a real-time multiplayer CMS for building, deploying opinionated data structure of developer education products, which sounds quite substantial. So worth checking out for sure. Maybe the two of you, and maybe me at some point when Nitro V3 is out or around it, could learn a thing or two there for their course platforms. But I'm definitely looking forward to all courses that will come up, actually. So really,
especially yours. I'll be very interested if you produce a course on Nitro. That would be phenomenal.
I will most likely.
You really should do.
Here, everybody.
Have you already started? Are you waiting for the release?
I wait for the release. I also think I put quite some substantial Nitro content out there already, so people can get started with. And then it's like, of course, I started with like a roadmap to see what I want to cover, how I want to do this, different angles. And there's also one other thing I'm waiting for, and this is a really spicy hot take, and I don't want to offend anyone, but I really hope 2025 is the year that Vinxi won't be needed anymore. So this, to like explain a little bit, because for the Nuxt users it's totally irrelevant, and I think for the analog users as well, but Tensec Start and Solid Start users, so their frameworks are based on Nitro, but not directly. So there's a layer, let's say an opinionated layer in between called Vinxi, and it's basically wrapping Nitro, or like a lot of features of Nitro, and providing certain functionalities. And in an, I think, ideal world, quote unquote, this would not be needed at all. So I really hope that there is a way to see that also the maintainer of Vinxi could maybe join forces, and we can all work on one, like, let's say, one bigger project together to make things work out and all like fit all the community needs in.
Yeah. I think the question is, like, whenever you have it feels weird to have a layer over a framework. So like, as in, I guess the equivalent would be someone building a layer on top of Vite in order for Nuxt to use Vite under the hood, that kind of thing. So you might want to do that if there's a deficiency in Vite or something that needs to be. But it feels like the better solution, as you say, is to contribute to the underlying framework and fix whatever the thing is.
But that's, of course, the other thing.
That's definitely a spicy take, though.
It is a spicy take. Though even the author, I would say, kind of agreed. I didn't talk to Nikhil specifically about it, but there was a video that was posted, and someone on Twitter asked, like, okay, does that mean that Vinxi will go away? And Nikhil was like, ideally, yes, but unlikely. Something like that. I'll link the tweet below so you can all read it up.
So he would like to see it go away.
I mean, in an ideal world, it seems like if we can reach that or some kind of compromise there, it would be great.
It's always hard, though, as an author of anything. Like, you don't want, like, it's really hard. I don't know about you, but I do not want my stuff to go away. Like, I want my library to stay. And then I find, oh, there's another library that does the same thing. Maybe it should go away. It's really hard. It's basically it's an ego death. It's sort of like, I have to sort of say no to like the thing that I might be known for this. No, I won't be known for this. It's going to go away. Or you enter a sort of a time where you sort of fight or like compete for, and and there can be lots of good reasons for that. If you think your thing is better, there's a better approach or whatever. But it's really, really amazing humility when people are able to say, I'm going to not try and keep my thing. I'm going to sort of collaborate instead. So it's always impressive to see. I always admire people like that.
I'm impressed by Eduardo is one person who I've seen do this a bunch of times, where he's like, don't use Pina if you don't have to. Like
Yes.
try to avoid using it. And it's like, how do you get to that point where you can actually like, oh, I created this thing that I spent so much time on and I want people to like get value from it, but also like don't use it. It's like I appreciate that though.
I think I like to mention some kind of tendency. It's called NIH. Maybe some people know about that. Short for not invented here. And it's beyond tech. Just like, okay, people are less likely to like use some external, that can be like things, right? Like products, research, whatsoever. So like, okay, if that wasn't made here in a company, we'd rather not use it and build our own. And that kind of leads to the standards XKCD, as we know, like, oh, there are 20 competing standards. Let's just make our own. Now we have 21. So in a way, it's really tricky because if there's nothing that exactly fits your use case, then it's very tempting to like, okay, just build this, especially it's modern. It's also under, let's say, quote unquote, my/our control. But ideally, then making the step either before or after saying, well, there's something that works equally well. We just need to add a feature or like use it differently and can do the same, if not even more, can always like be a good solution, at least to check out, because I'm the big fan of having less code. And also that means less code to maintain. As long as the other thing that's out there that I might co-maintain then is steering in the right direction or a similar direction.
So I've got another hot take for you all. Actually, I'm borrowing this one from Justin Schrader. So I don't know.
From the future.
I don't know how hot this is, but from the future, we will talk to him in about a week.
Yes.
You will publish the episode in a week.
No,
yeah.
Michael has a little a crystal ball, seeing the future.
I'm predicting a prediction that he will make. So this is getting meta now.
It's a 5K move. Impressive. There we go.
And that now 2025 will be the year of Metaframeworks in general, where we're seeing most of the innovation and excitement and movement happening at the Metaframework level, not at the framework as much. So Justin pointed this out in the future. And I think there's probably a lot of truth to that. I think it's, Vue has had not as much in terms of like releases and things like that. And that's great because we want it to be stable and all of this. Nuxt is also stable. So maybe that's not like the point that I'm actually trying to make, but like there's not as many features that Vue needs to have to be added, and it's harder to do stuff there. And we are seeing the movement and extra stuff happening is all of the things around what Vue is doing, like with Nuxt.
Well, I mean, I like this prediction. It sounds like a good prediction for Nuxt. I mean, I think basically there are natural limits to what a framework can do because a framework is confined in many cases to runtime code. So it's therefore, it's not totally the case. Vue, has compiler plugins that can do a lot of optimization at that level. And it's tried to reach out a little bit. So with supporting props being defined in TypeScript and do some code gen based on, then it has to resolve the TypeScript config of the project it's running in. Like it becomes very complicated very, very quickly. But there's a lot of stuff it can't touch. It can't touch the rendering of the HTML. It can't touch the optimization of the project as a whole. And that's why, VuePress even existed. VuePress, I guess, originally existed as just like an opportunity to really implement some of the things that you needed, because Vue wasn't enough. You couldn't just do it with Vue. So I totally see that. I mean, this isn't so much a thing in the future. It's a thing that's been true for the last couple of years, that with the proliferation of deployment services and ways of hosting apps serverlessly and on the edge, that's not a new thing, but that it demands frameworks. I think there's been this pull. It's something that has very much shaped what we've been doing at Nuxt, but I think also it's no surprise that it's going to pull everything else out. The React is the one outlier, right?
With like because the server components built in the framework and not the meta framework. Yeah,
exactly. And so that's the React. It feels like has aspirations to be like, if you have a sliding scale from something that's purely runtime code, that it could, just a library for rendering some stuff in the browser, and something that is, much more of a framework. React really wants to be on the framework end of that. I feel like. I mean, someone even said, Metaframeworks are called that because React wants to be a framework. I'm not sure if that's true. I think Metaframeworks, it's not just that they have one framework. Like Vue or React in them. They also have other frameworks like Vite or Webpack or PostCS. Like there's lots of other things involved, other libraries. And so, but I don't know. React definitely has a claim to be sort of on the framework end of things.
Now, at least. Yeah.
Now.
With
And
that
maybe
shit.
that's a good thing, but maybe it's also a bad thing. I mean, it was one of the people can struggle to how do you implement React? How do you build on top of it? You know, what does your server component look like?
Yeah, I think also was very controversial for people just said, I want my single page application, and like also that not being that easy with, well, React Meta Frame, one specific React Meta framework, so Next.js at the time and before. And also like people just straight up suggesting, hey, you should use React with a framework, which means people like are more pushed into, hey, you should use SSR and not, sure, you can still build your plain SPA. You better use the meta framework door to make things easier and still keep let's say, a foot in the door if you need some SSR capabilities and instead of like rewriting your stuff then. So in a way, I think what the, let's say, quote unquote, rest of the ecosystem does with like, yeah, you have meta frameworks, you can still build SPAs in it. I think that makes a lot of sense. And still, we don't see that big of a adoption in other ecosystems using meta frameworks compared to React. Maybe because of that push, but also even before that, we've seen a lot of people just straight away jump into Next and not plain React first. So I also think that will not change for React, but maybe that will change in terms of the year of meta frameworks to join that prediction. Hopefully, it will change in 2025 a bit, that meta frameworks becoming more of a thing that will be adopted.
Rock on the year of meta frameworks.
Anyone else? Daniel, you have another prediction?
I think we're going to see a rethinking of how open source works from a maintainability and sustainability point of view. It's something that we've seen some very interesting moves on this last year. So GitHub is really consistently trying to invest in open source. They've obviously, GitHub sponsors has meant a lot, has done a lot over the last few years. There's also stuff like Sentry's Pledge and others, StackBlitz and so on. Platforms like thanks.dev, other like obviously Open Collective and Patreon, all these things exist as well, but people looking to try and automate things or create funds for open source. I mean, I don't know. This is the kind of thing that you predict a lot. A lot of people have had hopes and expectations for. It feels like there's enough rethinking or asking the question of it that it might be. And I think one of the things that will drive that is actually WordPress. So the very, very, very bad and very public implosion of Matt Mullenweg, who basically went rogue and started throwing around accusations that seemed to me to be without base and acting in an incredibly damaging way to the contributors to WordPress and to other members of the WordPress community, all over the question of whether people are allowed to make a profit on top of the work that he and others have put into an open source project. And so that question, I mean, I think that what he did was a sort of existential threat to open source. But I think one of the things that it might do is it might end up making us ask the question about how we have a healthier model of open source and how we have a healthier model of open source sustainability. So this is an edge prediction. I don't feel this is a sort of 100% kind of thing at all. I think people might be asking the question. They probably should be asking the question. There are enough big organizations already that are voting with money, like Sentry and StackBlitz and Void Zero and others. It feels like there's enough there that something could happen.
I'd agree. I think I really, really hope that something does change because it does feel broken. And I don't think I know enough or am embedded enough to see what possibilities there are necessarily. But just I've talked with Raik from Directus, and he's very passionate about the whole open source and funding models and things like that. And Justin Schrader, we talked to in the future with FormKit, and they're trying to figure out how to make this work. And we see people like you, Daniel, all of these open source maintainers who are out there doing really good work, and yet trying to find ways to actually fund what they're doing. And if you were doing that same work at a Google or a Facebook or any other company, you would be very well compensated, and yet here you are taking this massive sacrifice financially to do this other work. And it seems like this weird imbalance, and I do wish that there's some way to address that, to like close that gap of allowing people to actually work on open source, but actually like sustain themselves and actually make money, and not just have to beg online practically to get people to donate, and like big corporations that are using and profiting off of their work. And somehow we've limped along in this current state. So hopefully we can make that better.
I mean, I want to be very clear. I'm very fortunate. So I am sustained. I've not got a handout, my cap asking for people to contribute. But that is by no means true across the ecosystem. I have a lot of opinions about this. I have a lot of opinions also about what we get wrong about it from the point of view, even when we're trying to talk about fixing it, what are we trying to fix? And why isn't stuff working? So is the idea that people should be able to earn a salary by contributing to open source? How does that work? Or is the idea that people should just be able to sort of maybe not earn a salary, maybe earn a stipend or something that basically enables them to work on open source, but that it's not directly tied to work? Stuff like maintenance contracts is typically, I think it's very, potentially very unpleasant place to go. Anyway, I think it would take over the whole episode. I think there's a lot of
make this.
Yeah, it would be interesting to talk about, because I think there's a lot of, people don't give money to open source based on the value that open source brings. It's just not a thing. There are projects that are incredibly valuable and nobody supports them. And there are projects that receive disproportionate support. Well, I mean, disproportionate to the value they bring. They bring value, but they get more support than you would expect. There's reasons for that, and there's not bad. There's reasons. So there's lots to talk about.
Absolutely. When you started with WordPress, though, I was wondering, and I think a lot of people are wondering, why hasn't there been a fork of WordPress yet? Like, okay, we have all the drama and some kind of existential threat to open source, but there hasn't been a WordPress fork. So that's also quite interesting, because usually if people say like, hey, I have a different opinion than you, and people are like, okay, if we can't find a way, it's open source, do whatever you want, you can fork it. But even with a project that's that big, or maybe because it's that big in terms of WordPress, that didn't happen.
Maybe. It is a very interesting question. I mean, it's also not done. So although, I mean, I've got to say that no matter what the courts say, it's difficult to see a future that doesn't involve Matt needing to step down or step out of leadership. I mean, I wouldn't be happy being involved in the project if he remains, because he has done such awful. And the idea that he's not stepped down, expressed remorse, made any apologies, he's doubled down every single time. So it feels like that is that it could change, but right now, I think they need some different leadership, and it will be interesting. Yeah, maybe because WordPress it's got community word counts, and it's got support, and it's got obviously the infrastructure of the plugin system, and there's the agencies who have clients on WordPress and all of that. It's not a simple thing to do, but
absolutely.
I think surely there will be something.
Oh, that's an interesting take. But do you think there will be fork?
I think probably people are devoting their energy right now to trying to get a change. I would guess. I don't know anything about this, but I would guess that behind the scenes, people are trying to rework the leadership structure and the governance structure of WordPress. And probably the reason we're not seeing forks from bigger community members and more influential people in the WordPress community is because that's where their energy is going. I suspect if they don't manage to make that work, then we will see something. So the fact that we haven't seen something yet isn't a sort of weird, people don't care, but probably it's evidence that people are doing something else instead behind the scenes.
That makes sense to me. Yeah, I think it's a good take. I like that. And I'm curious what will come out of that for sure. Michael, you have another one for us, another prediction for 2025.
Sure, I'll go with a not very controversial one because it's already starting to come true. So a few weeks ago, I sent out this tweet where I had some predictions, and they were mostly just like off the cuff. I didn't really give it a lot of thought. One of them that I put in there was more amazing conferences worldwide. And just a few weeks ago, the Mad Vue conference in Madrid popped up. So there we go.
Yeah, you made that happen, clearly.
Obviously.
I manifested it. I willed it into existence. So say what you will.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting one. I think I read the tweet, and that Mad View is coming up. I'm really like to see that. Plus, also a possible 2025 edition of Prague View, who maybe a few people, listeners, have heard about before. Let's see if and how these conferences will go. I think it's pretty interesting because from what I've experienced as someone who went to a lot of conferences, I mean, Daniel, you too, and Michael, you've also been to quite some, but like, seeing most of the Vue conferences in 2024, I felt that here and there, especially with like budget cuts and so on, and not only education, but also like developer budget cuts, there were less and less people at a lot of conferences. Not all, of course. There were still like full rooms in quite some, but I felt a few conferences also struggled with getting the right amount of attendees, especially in the Vue ecosystem somehow. For example, like Daniel and I both went to Vue.js.de, which was 2 days this year, not just one. And the Angular conference, which was right after that, was way bigger in terms of numbers. Might be because, well, Angular is more, let's say, prominent in the German-speaking area, or maybe because it has different standing, different community ties, whatnot. But I also think that in a way, there might be there might be a change in terms of how conferences market themselves, or like more local things, maybe more smaller things. I would love to see more, also different approaches. I would love to see it coming true. I'm not sure it will, besides of Mad View, but I would love to.
I'm trying to get to more conferences as well. For a long time, I've just been to the one in Toronto because it's in my backyard practically. And most of the other conferences are over in Europe, which is a little bit more difficult for me to get to. But now I have a baby girl, so it's hard to get away for like almost a week at a time. So we'll see where things happen, but I'm all for it. I have to be selective with the European ones. I'm hoping that an Australian one comes up.
That would be lovely.
I know there's some people out there. And I'd like to have a good excuse to go out there and meet some of the Australian folks. So,
Harlan, do you hear us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to see that too. Like Laravel Australia is a thing, for example. So why not having a Vue Australia or so? I don't know.
Yeah.
Take the name, please. Take it and make it happen. I would love to.
The one in Japan, I haven't been. So
that was lovely.
Definitely. I have questions about how much will be specific to Vue in terms of conferences, how much might be more generic. Because one thing, of course, that attracts conferences, so I think conferences are relevant for new developers who are exploring something for the first time. Also, when people are doing cool stuff and pushing at the edges. So like you have a new library, Trace, or Pinia, or Vue 3, let's talk about what composition API is, and sort of exploring something that's new. The more something becomes established and it's there, how many years will we have talks of here's what the composition API is? And so like as something becomes mature in there, do you know what I mean? Basically, we have to have and here's a prediction as well, 2025 is the year of Vapor, Vue Vapor, then we'll see conferences talking about Vue Vapor. And that's going to be an interesting thing, right? As you sort of have people talking, like, what is it? What are the patterns for using it? When do you want to use it? When do you want to use Svelte and Vue in the same app using Vue Vapor?
Wait, what?
And I'm sure you know about this. So basically, transitioning smoothly into my prediction of Vue Vapor, there's been a lot of work on it. It's happening behind the scenes in a number of different places. I think things are going to move forward. And I think probably even quite quickly, we're going to start to see stuff working or accessible. And it's going to start out as probably not going to work in a bigger project. It's going to need some compilation. It's going to work probably in WordPress out of the box to start with. People are going to play around with it. But for example, Katupon, who is the driving force behind Vue i18n and Nuxt i18n originally, has been creating like a Svelte Vapor that basically uses the same approach. So you can, so the concept, of course, of Vapor is, can we compile away the Vue runtime or have a very minimal runtime so that basically we don't need a virtual DOM for these components. We can directly manipulate things. Well, that's very similar to Svelte. And actually, there's nothing Vue specific about it at that point to the compile output. So normally you wouldn't want to have more than one UI library in your project because it's extra code. But if you're compiling down to effectively imperative functions that just directly manipulate the DOM, it doesn't matter. You're going to have the same behavior. If I have two components, it's going to be the size of those two components. It doesn't matter what framework they're written in. And so Kazapan is exploring like, well, Svelte. Can we write in Svelte and compile it to Vue Vapor? So why not? So I think Vue Vapor is going to potentially be, if people build on top of it in the same kind of way that we're starting to see happening behind the scenes, Vue Vapor might end up being, actually, well, better than Astro, better than what Astro promised. Actually something that allows interop at a very granular level in existing frameworks. So that could be pretty cool.
Sort of like using Vue Vapor as like a machine code for the DOM in a way where it's like everything kind of compiles down to the same assembly code or byte code or whatever,
Yeah.
That's
That's
super
very
interesting. Yeah. Like, Daniel, before, I'm really happy that I didn't say anything, because before you brought it up, and I was aware of the experience from Kazapon, I was even saying, Vapor mode will surely come out this year. I think we're all clear on that. Like, of course, no 100% guarantee, but same guarantees as that for, I suppose. But I would have even said a Vapor mode will not be significant for most of the people. And that might be a hot take, just because, well, if you're not doing large data tables or some kind of data visualization with a lot of SVGs and changes and charts that move super fast, or like gaming or whatnot in the browser with a lot of elements that move super fast. So if you build your typical software as a service application, or like your typical, app and dashboard and whatnot, it won't really matter how fast the, let's say, UI renders, because it's quite fast already. And instead, it matters, of course, how optimized your, API calls are, how well caching is, and so on. So I think a big group of people that are just building stuff, and I don't want to say boring stuff, but like more, let's say, typical things, won't see crazy benefits out of that for their stats.
I agree. But I think what is going to be interesting is going to be Justin's point about Metaframeworks. So can we automatically optimize things for users? Now, the Vapor is one compile target. The Vue virtual DOM is another compile target. Can we have others? So can we have stuff like that is purely static? Can we have things that are, I feel like server components is effectively becoming a compile target in Nuxt. Other kinds of compile targets that we can optimize for, where we basically say, this should be this kind of thing, because that's going to be most performant for you. Maybe.
That's an interesting take. Yeah, I like to have seen that. I hope there will be more of that in 2025 and more exploration on that. Nice. Anyone else having another hot take for us, another prediction? Something not so spicy, maybe. Anything like, hey, this is what should happen in 2025 and might likely will.
Okay, I'm going to give you an AI hot take.
Oh,
prediction.
yes.
I think it's going to be year of the AI agent. So there's a lot of stuff that's been LLM powered this year, and there are a lot of explorations into agents and agent frameworks. So of course, the idea of an agent is not just LLM or AI help that is directed by you, but it's able to do things more on its own. So maybe you give it some powers, some abilities. It can buy some stuff. It can research some stuff. It can contact, it can do some things, and then basically let it loose. Imagine, a virtual assistant that does stuff, just does stuff. That, I think, is going to be a common project people build. People are going to be building a lot of these. We're going to see them built in Nuxt and in other projects too. And I think we're going to see some frameworks for them. And I think it's also going to start affecting us as developers. We're maybe going to, I'm not talking cursor, you're still directing that. I'm talking maybe stuff that is more, sua sponte. Be interesting to see.
I've seen recently the people at LangChain released this email agent. And with that, this idea of, I think they call it ambient AI or ambient agents, where the idea is it's like if you had an assistant looking at your email, you don't have to reach out to them and say, what emails did I get today? Or you're not the one initiating. It's just like there triaging your email. Maybe it replies and says, oh, Michael will get back to you within a business day on this issue. And maybe some it like automatically puts into spam, or maybe there's really important ones and it like escalates that back to you. And it's sort of like just sits there and kind of just like takes action as it needs to, and is proactive versus like, yeah, you directing it like we're used to with Cursor. And I think for like, I can see this happening maybe with like sitting on different repos. Like we have code review AI and things like that, but I think it might get more sophisticated.
Really interesting. Yeah, I think like AI will definitely grow more and more, though I'm also wondering when the tipping point will be. People say, yeah, probably not in a couple of years. People say probably this year already, because we can't just like feed more data into the models, like make them bigger and see better results. So from that level on, I also wonder when is the peak in terms of like AI models, not even talking about agents. They were just saying, yeah, can we do like AGI very soon? Or is it more like we need other methods to build these models? Of course, being no ML engineer or AI engineer or whatnot by far, I was just curious.
There's been a lot of developments. I think, yeah, the model size has sort of topped out, but what they're doing a bunch of interesting things. So the one is the whole reasoning angle with like O1 and O3 coming at some point. And there's other models like Google has Gemini, has like a reasoning angle, and then there's DeepSeek. There's like a whole bunch of these companies are now doing that, where it like takes an existing model but lets it basically think more until it's, and people are speculating on what happens. Maybe it's like, I don't know, some sort of like search process. It's like running itself multiple times or doing something under the hood where maybe it'll take a few minutes instead of 10 seconds to answer the question. And that can make a big difference. And they're also taking these big models to actually generate new training data to basically make the smaller models more potent. Instead of just like taking, data from the internet, they're specifically crafting like very targeted data. And so that's another interesting thing. There's always like new developments. People think, oh, it's topped out, but then there's some new breakthrough that happens. And like, I think it was Meta a month ago came out with this idea of, so right now LLMs sort of think in tokens that are approximately like 1 token per word. But their whole idea was, what if we had these tokens as like a whole sentence or a whole idea? And they found that they got like huge performance gains if they switch to this method. It's a huge space and it's impossible to keep up with everything. And I'd like try to sort of pay attention to what's going on, but like every week there's like so much stuff.
Oh yeah.
But I think there's a lot of room left. So I don't think that it's topped out yet. It'll top out anytime soon. That's my AI prediction for 2025, is that it's
interesting.
It's not going to top out.
All right. We are slowly but surely wrapping up. I think I will bring in 1 or 2 more that are rather easy, not too spicy. Maybe one that's really spicy. Let's see. But I think an easy one, and we talked about it in the recap of 2024, alien signals. And I think alien signals will be adopted by other frameworks, as everybody is on signals and they want to get good performance, at least adopting some parts of it. And now Johnson is once again on a different approach. Yes, right now when we're speaking of once again writing things differently about, like, I think memory leaking versus memory safe signal system, something like that. I will link the posts from Johnson on that. So, but I think really like alien signals was adopted in different languages already. So we've seen things in Dart and Lua even, and it might also be adapted by other JavaScript frameworks. I'd love to see that. Everybody nodding. Always like, no.
The only thing I could think of for some reason while you were talking about that was that Alien Signals would be a great DJ name.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
If anyone's out there.
So if Johnson will ever start a DJ career, we have it. That would be fun though. And okay, and another one, I think that Vue will not get a major this year. It's not a crazy surprise tag. What do you think about it? Major for Vue this year? Possibly?
Do I think there's a major coming this year?
Major version.
I do not think there is. It's an interesting question. I mean, I think people are starting to talk about it. I think I wouldn't rule it out for 2026, and I wouldn't rule out work on it, and I wouldn't rule out even an RC. So,
Same.
I mean, nobody is talking about it right now, though, and in the sense that there's no feature or breaking change in Vue that anyone is talking about being a reason to do it.
I mean, there's some ideas floating around that also, like, even Evan told us last year in the podcast. But it's the thing, like, there's some ideas, some things, trying things out, seeing what's possible. But yeah, and maybe these are even things you can bring in as experimental, first of all.
Yeah. Which is a nice pattern, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Bring something in experimentally, try it out.
I heard it's progressive, one could even say.
Yeah.
I got one more, which is, I can find a way to frame it very spicy, but actually it's not very spicy, I think. We will not see a unified JavaScript toolchain this year. Very important. But I think we will see more stepping stones towards that, which means Vite with roll down included will be shipped this year.
Yeah.
And we already have a beta, so I think it's not too questionable, but yeah, that's definitely something that will end. Maybe we even see more rustification around that space, but video roll down, I think, is the minimal level. I say, like, that will happen.
Very cool idea. I don't know what's going to happen with Vite and the whole Void Zero. I'm sure. Yeah, you've obviously talked to Evan about it. It'll be really interesting to see.
Oh, it will be. It will be. Any other predictions or hot takes or opinions?
I think, I mean, on the hiring side of things, and I think basically these things are cyclical and they go up and down. And I would expect to see increasing demand for developers, but I think a lot of it is going to be in fields like AI and LLM. And I would think there's probably quite a useful thing to develop skills building with LLMs. So even if your experience is full stack, or even if it's front end, understanding a little bit about how these things work under the hood. It's not just AI, like it's not just magic. What's going on, what's happening. I'm not talking about becoming like a machine learning engineer, but just what's happening and how to use it. I think that is probably something that's going to become hugely useful. I don't know to what extent AI is going to be a bit like crypto, and at some point just a lot of startups are going to disappear. I'm sure that will happen.
Yeah.
Not in the same way that it happened with crypto. But I do think there's going to be a correction. But again, that kind of thing doesn't necessarily affect individual developers in the sense that you find a job somewhere else. The company disappears, though. And so it'll be interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting. But I expect to see sort of healthier markets for hiring. What do you think?
I hope so. I also hope that for Vue and Nuxt, there's a growing market, because I often see people say that they love to use Vue and Nuxt in their side projects and hobbies and stuff like that, but they learn React because they want to get a job, and that's where the market's at. And I'm not in the market, so I don't know what it's actually like. And so that's all that I have to go on. So I hope that it becomes more the case that people can get employed using Nuxt and Vue. And I think that's going to happen. As I mean, if 2025 is the year of enterprise Nuxt, then I think that'll go a long way to helping with that.
I think both points are quite interesting. I think with AI and, let's say, a productivity improvement in a way, we will maybe see less hiring in that space, or like at least hiring, because like, let's say, I don't know, before you needed 10 developers and now we need, I don't know, 5 with AI, just imaginary numbers, but like less developers plus AI help to build the same thing productivity wise. Not talking about people code reviewing and so on, but like pure building. So we might see less people being hired in general because the productivity goes up. On the other hand, we could also say like, okay, then people just build more and want to like have just faster, like better velocity. So that could go either way. But I agree. I really hope for everyone out there, and I talk with a lot of people from the community saying, yeah, in job market, especially through, well, the global situation with the wars we've seen, with like, at least also for Europe, big energy crisis and everything. It's not easy, and I hope it will get better for sure. as Daniel, as you said, it's like an up and down. And we've been for a long time in the market. It was just like for developers, it was so nice. Like you have a lot of projects you could join as a freelancer. Like if you're looking for a new job, you have no issues finding one. Even like pick your tech stack whatsoever. I probably won't get to that easily, but at least moving back towards like, let's say, more contracts, more job opportunities. And when we take a look, and maybe that's a nice circle back to the state of JS we talked about earlier, Vue is this like framework that's used second most in works. It was React, then Vue, then Angular, then Svelte, and then I think Lit and so on. I can't fully remember, but it's easy to check. So I really hope this will go a long way. Plus, with all the positivity and retention we've seen in the Vue results of the State of JS survey, which I've also talked about a little bit. We also talked about it in the episode before. I have a dedicated video on that. We'll go through that a little bit. I hope we'll keep these positivity and retention because if Vue showed one thing in 2024 and stability, and I hope they will continue. So fingers crossed for that. All right, and I think that's a good point to wrap up. We have presented lots of opinions, predictions, and hot takes. Now we want to know from you out there, what are your predictions for web development, for Nuxt and Vue? We haven't even talked once about web components. Maybe that's a prediction by itself, which we won't go into that. But yeah, let us know what you think about our takes and predictions, but also your own. Maybe there's something we didn't cover. Definitely let us know. Daniel, thank you so much for joining once again on the lovely DejaVue podcast. Always a pleasure having you here. And if people don't follow you yet, where can they do so?
Well, you can find me on Blue Sky or on my website, roe.dev. I'm there. And I'm probably everywhere else as well, GitHub and email and Discord. But it's been a real pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And that's a good point, actually, prediction-wise. I really hope Blue Sky will explode a bit more. So that would be might be great if more people could join over there, so I could slowly use less and less and less X. So people, if you don't have a Blue Sky account yet, that's your chance. Follow all of us there. We're all there. Links in the show notes and description for everyone. And yeah, that was our 2025 episode. Of course, we will do a review of our predictions at the end of the year and see if we were fully wrong, fully right, with a little recap. So stay tuned for that. But until then, of course, there will be new episodes, there will be new streams from Daniel, new courses and blog posts from Michael. I also bring out some new videos. Definitely check out the latest DejaVue episode if this isn't the latest, because afterwards we'll talk with the lovely Justin Schrader about FormKit. Also some hot takes maybe here and there. AI is also a topic, open source in general, and much, much more. And check out the older episodes. And if that's the last one, then hopefully, see you next week. And let us know all your thoughts in the comments on social media. Until then, see you soon, everybody.